Hi, this is going to be a battle report of Flintloque, the fantasy Napoleonic game of black powder skirmishes. If you want to see more about the strategies and tactics concerning the miniatures used in this battle report, I'm going to put a bunch of links in the description below, so you can check those out and take a closer look at the different miniatures. This battle report is going to feature Scenario 4, What Ails You? This is a free downloadable scenario that you can obtain from the Alternative Armies website. I'm also going to put a link in the description below that will take you to the free downloads section of the Alternative Armies website. So make sure you check that out. In What Ails You? The storyline is quite straightforward. The forces of the Dark Czar are still chasing the Sandu survivors, but the survivors have managed to team up with a group of dogmen that have also been escaping from the forces of the Dark Czar. So you have the Sandu survivors and the dogmen against the savant zombies. In this scenario, the objective is to light a beacon in order to find more survivors. If you are following the storyline of Escape from the Dark Czar, you will remember that they have been escaping from Moscova after that disastrous ambush. So the Sandu survivors and the dogmen need to do this. They need to light this beacon to signal other troopers. However, there is another objective. They have found a beer wagon, and as many of you know, beer is quite delicious. You need to secure that beer wagon. However, the savant zombies are not going to make things easy for them. Before we get into more specific details concerning the objectives, let's talk about the participating forces. On the Ferox side, from left to right, on the first line, we have Ayer Kinda-2. He is equipped with a drum and the Grand Agmedunog standard. He is good for restoring morale to surpass those checks when you need to break from perhaps a shaken condition, or if you want to activate and you have taken some hits. He is great for that, but he is not equipped with ranged weapons, and his only melee weapons are the drum and the standard. And he's a raw character, so he's not very good at almost anything. He's generally quite weak, so you need to keep him safe as he inspires others with the standard and the drum. Right next to him, you have Sandu, and he is probably the best miniature in the entire section. He is quite sturdy, really good at melee and ranged combat. However, he is equipped with a pistol, so he is not good at long-ranged combats. He's better at mid-range or up close even. He also has his pot of soup that he can use to feed an injured trooper so that he regenerates or restores a wound. Right next to him, we have a dogman officer by the name of Humphrey Doggart. Now, he's also pretty good with his pistol and sword. He's better at mid-range to close quarters combat. He's a natural leader and offers a command point for certain maneuvers. Next to him, we have a dogman sergeant by the name of Peronius Wesso. Now, this sergeant is very good at melee combat. He's also armed with a pistol, but his specialty is attacking up close and personal with his halberd. And he is quite athletic. He can move quite faster when compared to other dogmen, so he is a specialist when getting up close and personal, relatively fast. Now on the second line forward, we have from left to right a Biscuit brother. This is one of two identical brothers that are included in this section. He specializes at attacking from a range. He's really good with his standard rifle. However, the rifle takes 2 turns to reload. Oh, and if you haven't seen how much time you take when reloading one of these older black powder weapons, I'm going to put a link in the description below. I recommend that you check that out because it will explain why you take so many turns to reload some of these weapons. So this Biscuit brother is really good at ranged combat, as I was telling you, and he has a really good accuracy value. To his right, you can see 2 identical miniatures. These are the Bone brothers with their green caps. As long as they are within 15 centimeters from each other, they get a bonus to their discipline and their steady value. They are pretty decent in combat. They are armed with a standard carbine. They need to be relatively close to the enemy to be somewhat effective, but still the standard carbine has a good impact if you manage to connect a shot. To the right, you have Helmut Jucken. Now, Helmut is a specialist at long-range combat. He is armed with a Farag musket, so he still has some limits if he is fighting a battle from 61 centimeters and up. It's not a favorable condition for him, but just a bit below that, he is probably the best marksman in the entire section because of his magic ability of always counting as if he's aiming a weapon, even if he's moving around. Normally you need to stand still and focus on taking a good shot, but he always counts as if he has taken aim, no matter the situation. Then on his right, still at the front, you have the Ogre, Voel Umfrash. This is a very powerful and useful member of this section. He has high sturdiness, he is really good when aiming. He's armed with a canonderbuss with two types of ammunition, one more suited for long-range combat to eliminate a foe, and another type of ammunition that is better when used when several opponents are quite close together. It has an area of effect type of attack. So he's a really good miniature, a bit slow when marching, and he's also equipped with a spyglass. So once per game, he can actually make a reroll. If you roll too low, you can make that roll again. So you better make that count. It could save your life. It makes, when you get hit, it would count as a miss, either in ranged combat or in melee. Right next to Boyle, sporting a red cap, there is a dogman by the name of Red McStakes. He can reroll 2 dice during a game. It's somewhat similar to Boyle's effect, but it could be any die roll. And he's armed with a standard rifle, so he's better at long-range combat. To his right, you have another Biscuit Brother, which is identical to the other Biscuit Brother. And on the back line, we have Phaedolus the Hydrant. Now, this dogman, as you can see, he's very short. He's somewhat similar to Ayer in terms of battle skill. That is, he's not very good at melee combat or range combat, but he's equipped with a drum. And being a dogman, he's also quite fast. Despite being equipped with a pistol, he is there to provide bonuses by beating on his drum. To his right, you have Barry Barkens. Now Barry is equipped with a standard, so he is somewhat similar to Ayer and Phaedolus when it comes to his role on the battlefield. He's also serpentine in his movement, that is, if he moves, the enemies take a penalty when shooting at him. So he's just decent when it comes to ranged combat and melee combat. Not very good at melee actually, because he's only equipped with the standard as a weapon, but he's decently fast and steady. So he's there to provide support using his standard. And to his right, you have Purino Croquette. Now this dogman is a brawler. He's really good at melee combat. He's armed with a standard blunderbuss if he needs to fight a certain distance, but it's definitely viable to get him into melee combat to take down the enemy. Now let's talk about the Savant zombies. Almost all of them are the same. They have a high steady value, that is, it's very difficult to injure them. And for this particular mission, we decided to give them the Kuras special rule, that is, if they get shot or injured, the first wound is ignored. They are all equipped with a combination of either musket and sword or pistol and sword. Those that are armed with a musket, they are not very good at aiming. And Gurkinov, because he is missing one hand, he takes 2 turns to reload his weapon. One of the Savant zombies in this section is actually fighting with his bare hands because of a special ability that he has, in addition to his musket, that is. There are some differences when it comes to these Savant zombies. The section leader, Captain Preservich, and you can see him at the back line from right to left. He's the second one with his pistol and his sword. He needs to roll a die every time that you activate him, and if you roll a 1, you cannot activate him at all because he is having memories of when he was alive. He gets into that sort of stupor or paralyzed in some way. And to the left side, you can see 2 zombies from the regular zombie line. They will be replacing, they will be used as proxies, as additional Savant zombies, and they have some different features to them. The one at the back, he's specialized in close quarters combat. He's called Milinov, so he's quite decent when fighting up close and personal. He's a super savant, and in front of him you have Alertinov. He is really good when making rolls to activate. At the far right of the savant zombie line, in the second part that is up front, you have Reloadovich. He is really good at reloading. He can actually shoot every turn, but at reduced impact and accuracy. I forgot to mention that in the Farag section, the second in command is Boyle, and the first in command is Zendu. And on the seventh zombie section, the section leader, of course, is Captain Prezerovich, and his second in command is Bolshov. You can see him in the picture. He is the zombie at the left side of Captain Prezerovich. He has his open arms. In one hand he's holding his sword downwards, and in the other hand he's holding a musket. Oh, and one more thing. The lighting in the photos used in this battle report is different between different pictures because we played this game during the course of 3 days. It's not that it's long. Actually, you would only need perhaps an hour and a half to finish this particular scenario. Maybe less, it depends. But sometimes life gets in the way, you get quite busy and you have to interrupt the game. So we left the miniatures on the table and we had to play at different times, sometimes during the evening, sometimes during the day. And to top it all off, sometimes the sky was quite cloudy, so the lighting is somewhat different. Maybe we could imagine it as if in the Witchlands there were also some dark clouds that sometimes were obscuring the sun, and that's why the lighting changed. Now let's talk about more specific details concerning the mission objectives. For the Farag section to win, they need to keep the 7 zombies away from the smashed wagon. That is, there should be no enemy within 15 centimeters of the wagon by the end of turn 10. And they also need to pick up a torch from the bonfire in the east side of the battlefield and take it all the way to the west beacon. They need to spend an action in order to pick up the torch, and they need to spend an entire turn next to the beacon to light it. So as long as they fulfill these 2 conditions, the Farag section will win the scenario. And on the side of the Witchlands army, the 7 zombies need to, at the very least, kill 50% of the Farag section, and they also need to stop the Farag forces from taking the torch to the beacon. Now there are 3 elements that bring some interesting circumstances to the battlefield. First, we have unnatural wind. This is a wind that can potentially push all of the miniatures in play 5 centimeters determined randomly. It is suggested here to use a 12-sided die or perhaps a clock face to determine the random direction. But we found it a bit easier to just roll a 10-sided die because it works somewhat like an arrow. So you just roll your d10 and it's going to point a random direction, and you should move your character towards that direction. This unnatural wind comes into play if you roll a 1 at the beginning of a turn. And the beer wagon also brings an element of randomness, at least when it comes to mortal characters. The 7 zombies are not affected by this beer effect, but if a mortal trooper goes within 10 centimeters of the beer wagon, you need to roll a d10. And if you roll a 1, they will forget about the battle and they will move towards the beer wagon and start drinking for an entire turn. So they won't be able to control those beer urges. The other factor to consider is the bonfire itself. If a character steps on this bonfire, it will receive a wound. So, well, no character is going to voluntarily move into this bonfire. However, maybe someone pushes them into the bonfire, for example, winning in melee combat, and they make them back away. So they could fall into the bonfire. But it's also possible that the winds push them into this bonfire. Now, when it comes to the terrain itself, there are a few important places that could be used to take advantage when it comes to ranged combat. You have 2 hills. These serve to block line of sight obstacles, but if you decide to climb on top of them, you will be benefited by obtaining cover. However, you move slowly when on top of them because the snow is not as hard packed when it comes to the lower level. On top of these hills, it's quite difficult to move about. Your pace becomes quite slow. The other places of interest are the forested sections. The pine trees serve to block line of sight, but the white areas containing all the different trees, as long as your miniature is within that area, that miniature will receive an obscurement bonus. But it's also somewhat difficult to move amongst the trees, so the miniature within those zones moves at a slower pace. Now let's talk about the battle. During turn 1, there are no winds, and Phaidolus, the dogman with the drum, he decides to pray to obtain a command point, but his prayer is not answered. The Ferak side wins initiative. Both the Ferak and the 7th Witchlands section, but double march towards the beer wagon, but they are still quite far. During turn 2, there is no wind either. The Ferak wins initiative as well. Both sides keep double marching, taunting the others to get closer by exposing key figures, trying to provoke the other side to miss some shots, because in Flintloque, if you fire from too far away, the percentage of actually hitting something decreases. During this turn, Captain Preservich, unfortunately, stands dumbfounded. He rolls a 1 and he starts reminiscing about when he was alive, so he cannot move during this turn. During turn 3, there is wind, so everyone's position was changed as they were buffeted around. The Ferak won initiative as well, and both sections keep double marching against the winds, with Sendu and Joken acting as bait, while the northernmost dogmen try to intercept the savants. They're actually trying to take control of a hill. During turn 4, there is also no wind. The Ferak side wins initiative again, and one of the Biscuit Brothers and Peronius Hueso double march to try and take the hill, as the Mobo fires at the closest Biscuit Brother but misses. Gorkinov slow marches on the top of the hill and fires at Peronius but also misses. Holmut fires at Botkovich and misses by inches. One of the Biscuit Brothers double marches to Holmut's side. Reloadovich slow marches up the hill, fires at the closest Biscuit Brother, and he inflicts 2 hits on him. Milinov slow marches and fires at the other Biscuit Brother, but misses. The Bone Brothers double march towards the bonfire. Jelagin slow marches and shoots at the nearest Bone Brother, but that shot fails to connect. Alertinov takes a half step and fires at the Bone Brother, but misses. Purino and Ayev double march closer to the center, while Botkovich marches and takes cover near the trees. Bolshov double marches towards the bonfire. Barry double marches near the center, while Phaidolus does the same. Preservich double marches closer to center. Humphrey double marches towards the hill. Boyle and Red double march forward. Sendu remains in place. Sendu decides to use a command point to remove hits from the impacted Biscuit Brother and recover the command point through a discipline check. During turn 5, there is no wind either. The Ferak win initiative again, and Peronius goes uphill and challenges the 3 savants. A Biscuit Brother slow marches and fires at Bolshov, inflicting 1 hit. Bolshov manages to activate despite being hit, and slow marches and fires at the closest Bone Brother but misses. Humphrey slow marches and fires at Bolshov, but misses. A Bone Brother closes in and grabs a torch from the bonfire. Jelagin charges at the Bone Brother, inflicting 1 hit with his sword, while Alertinov begins to reload. The other Bone Brother also moves in to grab a torch. A Biscuit Brother fires at Bolshov, but misses. Reloadovich slow marches downhill and fires at a Bone Brother, inflicting 4 hits. Gherkinov charges downhill and stabs a Bone Brother from behind with his sword, eliminating him. Red slow marches and fires at Gherkinov, but misses despite massive jamminess, that is his ability to make rerolls. Red avoids the beer temptation. Boyle double marches closer to the enemy, throwing caution to the wind. Botkovich quick marches out of the trees and fires at the surviving Bone Brother, but misses. With murderous intent, Preserovich double marches towards the Bone Brother. Purino slow marches and fires at Botkovich, but misses. Sandu quick marches and fires at Butkovich, but misses as well. Melinov double marches towards Sandu's group, and Asimovo double marches down the hill to pursue the Bone Brother. Ayel, Fidolus, and Barry double march closer to the center. Alertinov reloads, and Butkovich's cuirass protects him from receiving a wound during this turn. During turn 6, there is wind, so the strong winds push everyone around, changing their positions, and those around the bonfire fell on it, suffering wounds. The Ferrag win initiative again. The remaining Bone Brother double marches towards the beer wagon and resists the temptation of drinking beer. Sandu double marches next to him and heals him with his soup. Bolshov charges at Sandu and they exchange blows. Sandu wins and pushes him back. Butkovich charges at Sandu and almost hits him, but Boyle warns him using his spyglass and Sandu dodges just in time. Red charges at Jelagin, but suffers 4 hits from his sword strikes. Jelagin attacks Red, inflicting 3 hits. Gherkinov double marches towards the Bone Brother, while Humphrey goes to Red's assistance, inflicting 4 hits on Jelagin with his sword. One of the Biscuit Brothers charges at Milinov and inflicts 2 hits with his knife. Alertinov slow marches and fires at Purinov, but misses. Preserovich slow marches and fires at Humphrey, but misses. Peronius charges downhill and attacks Preserovich, but suffers 1 hit from the Savant's Zord. Purino charges at Butkovich, inflicting 2 hits with his bare hands. Asimovo charges at Humphrey and inflicts 2 hits on him using his sword. Rilodovich slow marches downhill and fires at Peronius, but misses. Helmut begins to reload. Ayer takes a half step forward and begins to beat on his drum. Milinov is too shaken up to act. Barry Barkins slow marches and fires at Alertinov, but misses. Fidolus slow marches and fires at Milinov, barely missing him. A Biscuit Brother double marches to assist, but is tempted to drink the beer. During the aimed fire phase, Boyle fires at Bolshov, taking him down for good. I forgot to mention that Helmut finishes reloading. Now hits are converted to wounds, and Red does not survive. Then we have turn 7. There is no wind. The Ferrag win initiative again. The Bone Brother approaches the beacon by double marching, and Helmut slow marches and fires at Gherkinov, barely missing him. However, that shot seemed to have spooked Gherkinov and flees from the battlefield. Alertinov charges at Barry, but neither combatant scores a hit. Sandu attacks Butkovich with his now empty pot of soup, eliminating him. Purino charges at Alertinov, but neither of them score a hit. Rilodovich charges at Peronius from the side, inflicting 3 hits. Asimovo attacks Humphrey, but no hits are scored. Barry attacks Alertinov, inflicting 3 hits with his standard pole. The Biscuit Brother on the south attacks Milinov, inflicting 2 hits. Preserovich attacks Peronius and kills him. Jelagin attacks Humphrey, but Dogman counters and kills him instead. The Biscuit Brother starts drinking beer like a madman, or a mad dog rather. Humphrey manages to shake off his nervousness and attacks Asimovo with a sideswipe, inflicting 2 hits. Milinov attacks the Biscuit Brother with his fists, but receives 3 hits from the Dogman instead. Fidolus starts beating on his drum, while Boyle double marches forward, and Ayag keeps on beating on his drum. At the end of the turn, the hits turn to wounds, and Milinov dies. Due to heavy losses, all Savants receive a shaken token. During turn 8, there is no wind. The Ferrag win initiative again. A Biscuit Brother charges at Alertinov, scoring 3 hits with his knife, while the Bone Brother begins lighting the bonfire. Preserovich shakes off the pressure and reloads. Rilodovich slow marches and fires at Humphrey but misses. Purino attacks Alertinov with his bare hands and defeats him. Humphrey attacks Asimovo and defeats him. Boyle double marches towards the enemy, and Ayev keeps beating on his drum. Sandu and Helmut reload, and Fidolus and Barry decide to reload as well. Everyone finishes reloading. During turn 9, there are no wins, and the Ferrag win initiative again. Humphrey charges at Asimovo with his sword, but gets struck back with one hit. Purino charges at Rilodovich, but he is struck back, taking 2 hits from the Savant's sword. Preservich attacks Humphrey but fails to score a hit. Rilodovich uses his sword against Purino and scores 2 more hits. The Bone Brother finishes lighting the bonfire, and the Biscuit Brother finishes his beer. The other Biscuit Brother decides to reload. Sandu slow marches and fires at Preservich, inflicting 3 hits on him. Barry slow marches and fires at Preservich but misses. Helmut slow marches and fires at Preservich but also misses. Phaedolus double marches towards the Savant, and Boyle as well, while Ayag follows suit. The Biscuit Brother finishes reloading, and a command point is spent, managing to remove 1 hit from Humphrey. The command point is not recovered in this turn. Hits are converted to wounds, and Purino unfortunately does not survive the wounds, and Preservich suffers 3 wounds. During the final turn, turn 10, this is a very important turn. The Savant zombies are quite reduced in their numbers, and the Ferrag side has already used the torch on the beacon, so the only thing that they need to do is keep the Savant zombies away from the beer wagon. So in turn 10 there's actually wind, and everyone is pushed around. The Bone Brother is moved to the side just moments after lighting the beacon. The Ferrag win initiative again. Boyle charges at Preservich, killing him with a massive blow from his fist. Sandu charges at Rilodovich, attacking him with his pot of soup, but only manages to push him back. Rilodovich makes a last attempt to win the mission, double marching within 15 centimeters of the beer wagon. He only needs to survive this turn and the Savants will win. One of the Biscuit Brothers attacks Rilodovich, but receives 1 hit doing so. The other Biscuit Brother fires at Alertinov, but misses by centimeters. Barry charges in, but is killed by Alertinov's sword attack. Helmut attacks Alertinov, but he does not score any hits. Aya beats his drum to help Humphrey out of his shaken state, but to no avail. With great bravery, Phaedolus attacks Alertinov with his drum from behind, but no hits are scored. The Bone Brother double marches as fast as possible towards the east, but it's too far away. He cannot attack Alertinov. The beer is spoiled by the necromantic energies of the Savant by the end of turn 10. The Witchlands Savant zombies win the scenario. So this was quite exciting, as you can see. This scenario is quite balanced in my opinion. At first it seemed like the Ferrag side was going to win, but the Savant zombies in that last attempt or effort, they managed to recover victory from the Ferrag side's hands. There could have been some improvements on both sides in my opinion. For example, the Ferrag section could have played a bit more risky, getting closer to the beer wagon to risk that temptation or getting drawn into the beer wagon to drink beer, because you only need to make that roll once. If you manage to overcome your urges to drink the beer, you are safe for the rest of the scenario. So they could have shortened the distance like that. And on the Savant zombie side, I think they played it too safe, staying inside the woods and trying to take control of the hill. They could have gone a bit farther. After all, because of their cuirass and the natural resistance of the Savant zombies, they have a high steady value. They could have risked taking some shots while at the same time firing at the enemy as well. Both sides suffered from firing from too far away. Sometimes it's a good idea to take that chance and see if you manage to score a hit, even if your accuracy is terrible, by firing from too far away. But I think both sides could have gotten a lot closer to start attacking each other from there, and therefore scoring more hits with their flintlock weaponry. I also think that, for example, on the Ferrag side, they could have, because you have greater numbers when compared to the Savant zombies, they could have formed some sort of like a defensive line, stopping the Savant zombies from getting close to the beer wagon, no matter the cost, because the Ferak forces, although they suffered losses during perhaps half of the game, they could have suffered a few losses while at the same time firing from a closer distance and potentially eliminating several savants or keeping them somewhat paralyzed because maybe they got too many hits and they failed to activate, or maybe they suffer wounds and end up quite shaken because the savants have very low discipline rating. In fact, they have no discipline value at all. So it would be quite difficult for them to recover from being too shaken up or taking too many hits. And I think the savant zombies also focused too much on eliminating the Bone Brothers that were racing towards the bonfire to take those torches. They could have forgotten about them and just focused on eliminating the Ferak troopers and getting closer to the beer wagon. So there was a lot of room for improvement when it comes to strategies and tactics, but nonetheless it was a very exciting scenario and once again very balanced, which is surprising because Flintloque is not a game of exact balance. They do give you some points to match the forces somewhat fairly, but it's all about the scenarios and the objectives and using the troopers that you have to the best of their abilities and just focusing on the objective, playing smart. Each loss counts and each shot fired also counts. So this is a game, a thinking man's skirmish game. You really have to pay attention to the battlefield. Every centimeter that you move could be vital to win the scenario. So you cannot expect to move recklessly and just roll a bunch of dice. Each thing that you do, each action that the characters take could decide the entirety of the scenario. Well, thanks for watching this battle report. I'm going to be bringing out more Flintloque related material. I'm going to follow up with some reviews in a few weeks. Remember to check out the links in the description below, especially if you are new to Flintloque. This is one of the best wargames that I have played, and I still have to explore so many things about it. I haven't played with all of these species and races and weapons and special abilities, etc. that come within the core rulebook of Death in the Snow. Flintloque is truly probably one of the best wargames in terms of value and accessibility. The paywall, so to speak, to get into it is quite affordable. You just need your core rulebook, a few miniatures, and that's it. The use of proxies is even encouraged, and if you want to make conversions, in the Alternative Armies website they sell all sorts of things like bits and pieces and muskets and pistols, etc. So you could take your miniature and customize it however you like it. And as you could see from this battle report, I didn't have more savant zombies besides the 6 that come included in the starter set, and so the 3 zombies from the zombie line that I reviewed a while ago, they were quite useful to serve as proxies for the savant zombies. And well, thank you so much for watching this battle report. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. See you later.